G'day everyone, and what a day it is too. Welcome along to Zandvoort. It is Saturday, it's qualifying day. Formula is back after the summer break, and it's round 15 of this season in 2024, the 34th World Championship, Dutch Grand Prix, and we're here in Zandvoort. And guess what? It's not just the sea where things are a little bit wet round here, because that beautiful afternoon yesterday, where we might have had a bit of wind and a lot of sun, has just disappeared. The wind's dropped and the rain has come back down again. This circuit in the dry, 60% full throttle, 2.46 miles, 14 corners, some back turns as well, and a top speed of 208 miles an hour along the main straight toward Taza at turn 1. So we've got the hardest compounds that Pirelli bring to a Formula 1 Grand Prix, the C1, the C2 and the C3, but I think we're going to be using the intermediates at least for the start of this practice session, and maybe the wet weather tyres a bit later on, because the risk of rain is 60%. That is how it looks currently. The C is the bit to your left, the wet stuff is the bit to your right. It's been raining all morning, the crowd are getting absolutely heating up, so we're okay, Anthony Davidson.
I've actually got a jacket on, Crafty, and someone turned the aircon up, I think. But yeah, what a miserable day so far. I don't think this negativity thrown away by trusty weatherman, because he told me it wasn't raining. I looked out the window door, yes, it's raining, so yeah, that's gone. We'll just rely on obviously on track.
Everyone likes a bit of rain, especially on qualifying day. What an exciting qualifying we had last year in tricky conditions too. But Carlos Sainz, I've just seen a shot of Carlos Sainz in the garage looking up at the weather radar. I don't think he was smiling as much as we are.
No, certainly not. With the limited running he had yesterday, what was it, 7 laps he did total, before the gearbox failed on him. He, of all people, would like this to be a nice, sunny, dry day. If that's what we're going to have, dry weather from this point on through the rest of the weekend, I don't think he's going to get that.
Sorry, I'm having a dance in the commentary box here because the DJ's turned the tunes up. As I was walking up the steps, it was Sweet Caroline. We're now on to Ibiza Classics, quite frankly. What happened yesterday? George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, as you can see here, first and third. Oscar Piastri, with his rib intact now, was second fastest. Lando Norris was ahead of Max Verstappen, and the top 5 in FP2 all separated by about 2.5 tenths. Although, had they all been doing their fast runs at the same time, I dare say it would have been a bit closer than that.
Well, Max Verstappen seemed a little bit downbeat actually in the interview, and he said, well, we were a little bit too slow in the short runs, a little bit too slow in the long runs, but some other teams read that differently, and I would say, yeah, I tend to agree with you, Crofty, that I still think they're completely in the mix here and could have set the fastest time overall in that session on the soft tyres if he had ran a bit later, because the track was wet obviously in FP1, it then dried up, the wind was always there, well, which helped dry the circuit actually, but then we were left with a situation where the track was so dusty and lots of sand here as well, and it continued to get faster and faster as they ran on the slick tyres throughout the session. He did his lap time earlier than most, the same lap actually as Norris, and they were separated by half a tenth or 0.2 of the tenth or something. So yeah, we expected McLaren to be very close to the Red Bull of Max Verstappen around here, and yeah, it's not just him. It's, like I say, top 5 separated by 2.5 tenths.
And when we got to the long runs, to the race simulations, Max's run on the medium tyre was about 1/10 of a second per lap on average faster than his closest rivals. On the soft tyre, about half a tenth faster. So it does suggest Red Bull might have a stronger race pace than their rivals. But you know, because you've driven here and you've raced here before, qualifying is massively important. Yes, you can overtake, but it's not the easiest track in the world to overtake on. So if the likes of Norris, Piastri or Russell, Hamilton can steal a march in qualifying, and Max has to start, you know, 4th or 5th maybe on the grid, he's not going to have it all his own way in the race.
Exactly, yeah. Sergio Perez, as we look at him here as well, he was just over 6 tenths away from Max Verstappen yesterday, so a difficult day for him yet again. But this is a tough track. It's a brutal one. I think Norris said in an interview I heard this morning from yesterday saying this is a tough track to arrive at after a summer break, because it comes at you thick and fast. It's a proper roller coaster ride, up and down, left and right. It's got banked corners and lots of grass and gravel wait for you, with big curbs as well. So you really have to have your wits about you around this circuit, and therefore we see a bit of natural separation between teammates using the same equipment as well, because a lot of it, this is a proper old school driver's track.
And I love it. I'm glad you've reminded us that we're actually here in the summer, because it isn't really very summery conditions today at all. Fair play to the crowd, who are in fine voice and are sat with rain macs and ponchos on. And I don't think they're going to be looking at a huge amount of action straight away in this session, because the forecast is for it to be like this pretty much all day today. The teams have only got a certain amount of intermediate tyres and wet tyres, and they are going to need those for later on. But I think Nico Hülkenberg is one of those drivers that might like to get out there, because in FP1 yesterday, he really seemed to be struggling with the tyres locking up. And of course, he had the accident to go with it in FP2, where he brought out the red flag in the dry.
Plagued by braking issues yesterday, wasn't he? We saw him, every time we saw a shot of him, the car was careering off the track, and through no fault of his own, from how I saw it anyway. So I'm sure after repairing the car, it was a light touch in the barrier in turn 1, but still enough to do some damage. And yeah, that was in FP2. So he's back out there now, obviously to get a read on the brakes, I should imagine, first and foremost, and to help build a bit of confidence in that regard, because you have to have confidence when you hit the brake pedal, wet or dry. You have to know that it's going to stop in a benign way. It's going to slow down without one axle grabbing more than the other, or one brake grabbing more than the other. It just seemed very odd in how the car was performing, or not performing, on the braking yesterday. His teammate Magnussen didn't have the same issue at all, so it seemed to be unique for Hülkenberg, as he's making some mode changes there before turn 8.
Now, interestingly, he's got the wet tyres on, not the intermediates. I thought it might just be dry enough for intermediates out there, or not as wet, so we could get the intermediates. But Haas are just using the wet tyres for now, and not just for Hülkenberg, but Kevin Magnussen too, and Valtteri Bottas has also got the blue stripe wet tyres on. And one word around rooster tails.
Oh yeah,
I think that's one word. It is in my book anyway. We're going to see a lot of those today.
Yeah, and it's that phenomenon that can dry the circuit as well. We saw yesterday in FP1 that after the wet running, that you saw a drier line appearing on the racing line because of those rooster tails getting kicked up by the diffuser and the tyres themselves, of course. My apologies, by the way, it was Magnussen in turn 8. Hülkenberg was further down the track, going towards turn 11, but he's back in the pits now.
And it's okay. Our focus a lot of the time is not necessarily just on the drivers on the track. As you well know, we have a little sideline where we like to look after the younger drivers in the sport and find ways for them to get into the sport. And it's a well-known fact that if you come into the Sky commentary box, you are guaranteed a race seat in the future in Formula One. So at this moment in time, I'd like to welcome the latest driver to arrive in Formula One, Jack Doohan, who was with us. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Crofty. I think you mentioned that at the start of 2023 last season, and you know, to be honest, probably at that time I was hoping it was a little bit sooner, but you know, everything happens for a reason, and
we had your career all mapped out, mate.
Exactly.
It was never in doubt. The minute you joined that tonight, you were guaranteed a seat.
No, if only it would have been that easy back then. But no, very thankful and grateful. In the end, everything happens for a reason, so I'm very happy with the timeline and just for the opportunity. You know, it's a once in a lifetime and something that we all dream of as kids in karting.
Looking remarkably sharp and awake for somebody that's been doing some sim work last night.
Yeah, to be honest, you know, flashback an hour ago, I don't think I was looking so good, but you know, to be honest, with the excitement, you know, to be here back on track, I always find some bit of strength again and lighten up.
What time did you finish last night then?
We finished, I think, finished up the last run at 2:40. We had, as you saw, conditions were very difficult yesterday, and wind is a huge factor here. Not only is it changing also between P3, the Q, and then also Sunday wind. So each balance that we're trying, then after trying different wind conditions, correlate. So runs just get amplified, and things stack on, and we just kept on going. And yeah, it was lengthy, but I was also committed to it.
And with the wet conditions that we have here for FP3, it puts even more emphasis on the work you were doing last night, because that can be, obviously now, it's the only work they have to go on before potentially putting the setup items you found or discovered yesterday onto the car for qualifying.
Exactly. It's, when you have a not so easy first day Friday, and then all of a sudden P3, which is supposed to be yourself finding your feet, maybe regrouping before qualifying, that's on intermediate, that's a wet, everything's out of the window. Now you're blind going into qualifying. It's important, we will send through X amount of test items from A through to E or F, A obviously being top priority. And the boys, they're both drivers, engineers, will have to cipher through and go, okay, this has worked before, I potentially like this change, or no, I'm not going to maybe gain so much confidence from that. They might not do anything, but maybe a change for us and looked like it was a strong one, but could potentially not gain too much confidence for the driver going straight into qualifying. It's something that they won't be able to take and won't be able to risk.
More on this weekend in a moment. Obviously, one of the benefits of getting a full-time seat for next year is you won't be doing all this sim work till 2:40 in the morning. You'll be doing corporate sponsorship work as well. We've got a lot of that lined up for you. We've got a lot of mates who've been passing on congratulations to you as well. Patrick Mahomes was one of the people that wanted to say well done and even tweeted, "Let's go, congrats, man." Since when did you and Patrick Mahomes become such buddies, yeah?
Since I did this really cool catch, the catch, I caught a ball that he threw in Miami, and actually it was nothing without my catch.
You made the scene.
I made it. To be honest, it was relying on my catch. If I didn't catch it, obviously it wouldn't have happened. Bad throw and whatnot.
It was the second best catch by someone in the stands at a sporting event that I've seen this year. Did you see the guy at the cricket yesterday?
No.
There was a guy, was it Smith, the England batsman, hit this six into the crowd, and a guy caught it one-handed, didn't spill his beer in the process, which is the mark of a great catch if you can keep your pint intact.
I think they're looking out for that their whole lives rather than the stands, no? Like
Just
practicing it literally at home on the couch trying not to spill the beer.
Are you ready to become like a global megastar, though? The fact that you will be one of 20 drivers in Formula One, that now just elevates you. You go from, and look, we joke about the global superstar bit, but you go from being reserve driver, fitting in with the team, making a few coffees, doing the sim work, learning your trade. Now there's a huge responsibility on you for the future.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, it's a really good feeling. I was at the factory yesterday, I did my first speech in front of all the staff, which was super special, because we do a lot of, you could say, speaking in front of Paddock Club, or also on stage appearances. It was the first time I'm speaking in front of a group of people who really care what I'm saying. It really impacts them, and they're taking a lot from what I'm saying, because these are the group of people that are shaping the machinery around me for next year. And it's really cool to actually know that everything I do, the effort that I put in is all, not that has been worthwhile, but I know it is. That is confirmed, that I know that we're going to be working together. I know that we're having a working relationship, that the more we put into it, the more we're going to get out of it, and that's a really good thing.
When did you know, now it's all out in the open and the news is broken, and we congratulate you on the drive for next year, when did you know, there's a point for a drive when you know this is looking really good?
I think the moment Carlos signed for Williams, I was obviously stoked. I was over the moon. I bribed him with burgers, with everything under the sun to try and not get him to sign for us. So when he signed, I was stoked. I was actually in an engineering meeting for 2 test days that I had at Spa after the weekend, and then it was a little bit silent, and I was not worried, I was slightly worried maybe. Coming back home from dinner with my father, my performance coach, on Monday night, I got the call that I would be driving, be a Formula 1 driver for next year, which was, obviously I hadn't signed, so I was like, still super, super cautious. And to be honest, even when I did sign on the Wednesday afternoon, when I did the 2024 Pirelli test day, until yesterday, and it was out in the open and in the public, I still didn't believe it.
We'll go back to you in a couple of seconds. You see there's a yellow flag, it's Hulkenberg.
Oh dear.
And as you can see, there's only half a front wing. This is the sort of thing, Jack, you need to avoid next year. try and complete the lap with the front wing intact. And Nico Hulkenberg has done 217 races so far in his career, and I'm sure he's had a couple of moments like this as well. But these conditions playing havoc. But look at that, he's very neatly collected the second half of that front wing, so he can bring it back to the garage. So not to give people too much stress over lunch, so they can try and fix that a bit. But he's had a bit of a bang down at turn 12.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's shedding past that front wing as well as he goes, though. Then he couldn't see. You can't see the front of the car when you're sitting in it, as Jack will know all too well. So yeah, he's collected that front wing unknowingly, and as he's got on his way, but it's now stuck under the car and it's breaking apart. So they may have to stop this to clear that up.
Yeah, we hope there's not too much debris.
I wonder.
He's done well to get it back.
Wonder how he's done that, potentially maybe on the braking into 11.
Well, we saw Verstappen actually have a spin there at the chicane when he went onto the intermediate tyres first. I don't know, yeah, we've got lots of other, yeah, they're all on intermediates, but it is a corner where if you clip that inside curve, it can spin the car around. But
I think, because I think it was...
Yes, here we go on the way into... Oh, you know the brakes again?
It is. That is not driver error.
You might have missed some of the...
I saw yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah. So basically, plagued by braking issues.
This again, same as yesterday. I touched the brake and the lock up.
Weird. Something weird is going on there. And whether it's in the software or not, I mean, you would know these systems even better than I do, Jack, but how would that be? Would it be software or hardware from your experience?
I don't know, it obviously potentially could be software, there's so much going on, but it also could be hardware and how the car's sitting. You know, if it's quite rare, and I'm sure it's not the case, but even if, you know, all four corners aren't sitting correctly.
And here's his teammate Magnussen, opposite wheel.
That looked a bit more normal, I'd say, for me. Just we've seen many cars go wide in turn one and the tailwind there, and it's more normal. We see a lock and then an unlock. The driver is in control of what they're doing with the brake pedal, but
especially where that happened, which was late combining. Hulkenberg was in a straight line early on, which is not a good position to be in. Because you know, at least for Fernando's case or K-Mags that we just saw there, that lockup was, let's say, later. The car had decelerated a little bit, and you could be more under control. Where with Nico's, when it happens so suddenly, so early, and all of a sudden that tread that's supposed to slow you down is now stuck and moving across the water.
So the left rear was locked as well at the same time as both fronts being locked.
The left rear wasn't rotating me a little bit with the corner weights, where potentially couldn't.
And he tried a bit of cadence braking as well, but I thought it was a bit late if he was lifting off, or he lifted off late the brakes and then back on again. It just seemed that no. We'll get Bernie Collins to go down to Haas and inquire on that one. He has been noted, Nico Hulkenberg, for driving in an unsafe condition. He might actually not have known that front wing was necessarily stuck under him. We're riding on board with Lando Norris going for a lap on his intermediate tyres. Do you, and I'm sure you did plenty of laps in dry and wet yesterday, Jack, is it different lines here in the wet, or is it very much still that same dry line or not?
You know, there is, in some circumstances, some different lines around here, but as you can see, you know, it's a tight, narrow circuit. There is not a lot of room to be honest, like this section here, 12 and 11 and 12. If you're going to go offline, you're going to be going slower. There is just not the track width and space to trying to find a different line, try and get off that rubber. We also have corners like the second last corner, turn 3, which are banking. Oh, we have a
yellow flag.
George Russell down at turn 1 is going again. So he's had a moment. Whether he went into the gravel or not, I don't know. There he is. He's found the escape road. Fastest man yesterday, and off into the escape road now. Oh, Logan Sargent, who crashed here in qualifying last year, has had a mighty off, I'm afraid, at turn 4. And that is definitely a red flag. Up it comes on your screens now. And he's completely lost it. The part of the track ants, and Jack, you know, you're getting your foot down, you're trying to find the right flow, and there's a fire as well, as you can see that he's going to need some extinguishers on it pretty soon. I'm okay, says Logan Sargent, and that's good to hear, but he needs to get out of that car if he hasn't already done so. I think he has managed to clamber free from that Stricken Williams. but that is a big, big crash, and the last thing you would want as a driver and the team on a Saturday morning practice session.
It's a very strange play. It's good to see these out of the cars, that car. So they've got to get the fire extinguisher on that rapid as soon as possible. Yeah, the last thing you want to end up having is some kind of a battery fire on these cars. It's incredibly hard to put out.
I would hazard a guess that Logan Sargent is not going to be taking part in qualifying.
Yeah, I seriously doubt that now. But as James Vowles, concerned, rightly so, watches on. But how on earth did you lose the car? How did that happen at that part of the track? Because you've got so much downforce going through the car there at high speed. And it's not really usually a corner that tests the balance and grip of the car. It's just a run up towards Skyflock corner, turn 7. As we know, it's the last car I saw crash there was in F2. I think it was Fred Vesti. Was it last year?
Wheels in the car.
Where the rear wheel came off, and that's what it takes usually to spin a car around on that part of the track.
It is obviously blind as well in these conditions. Obviously, we won't know until we see the replay.
Has he had to veer off to avoid another car or get the car offline? Who knows? But yeah, real strange one.
We'll see a replay, I'm sure, in a moment, but for the time being, that is the state of that Williams car. I would imagine has spun round and hit the barrier front and rear as the marshals begin the clean-up process. But this could take some time. Let's have a look at the replay now. Going around turn 3, Hugenholtz. Right wheel on the grass.
He's got the grass.
Oh no.
Just eager to get his foot down on the exit of turn 3. So yeah, it happened a lot earlier actually in that run up towards turn 7 than I thought. So that's what it takes. You put your wheel on the grass and you lose an awful lot of grip. And that's a hard hit into the Armco barrier there, isn't it?
It's about what, 110 miles an hour in the wet, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. But such are these fine margins between a perfect exit and a trip into the barriers, and with a tyre flying off as well. You can see the photographers taking a few paces back, and Oscar Piastri avoiding running over any of the debris.
Wow.
That's not what you want to see ever.
And the mechanics know instantly, don't they? They know, you can see the pain on all of their expressions. They know how much hard work that's going to be. So he gets on the curb, that's okay, but he then continues onto the grass, still trying to put his foot down. And in this wet condition, you really have to admit defeat sometimes and live to fight another day with breezing off the throttle.
Are you okay? Are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. You okay? That's what matters. Car's on fire, mate. Car's on fire, so you should jump out. Jump out, car's on fire at the rear of the car.
Yeah, because he wouldn't have seen that, Jack. He wouldn't have seen the fire at all.
No, it's something that, you know, the last thing that it would be going through his mind at that point would be, you know, as long as he was okay, he'd be so much going through his mind. What just happened? How did that obviously go wrong? Backstepping and not thinking about potentially the car's on fire.
I guess what's frustrating for drivers a lot of the time in Formula One, even pundits like myself now, trying to explain the details of this sport, this complex sport, and what it takes to be a driver to get these cars around safely. So it usually, because they're all so good out there and doing their job, drivers make it look easy, and that's all it takes to go from hero to zero in many cases. And I mean, it's hard for the fans, I think, to appreciate a lot of the time how difficult these cars are, Jack, to thread the eye of the needle.
Exactly. You know, when it's in its working window and the car and the driver are connected, it looks so seamless. It looks so easy, let's say. But there, what we saw was, in any dry conditions, something that would be not even an issue. Exiting the corner, opening up the steering wheel like we saw, not even that he was really, pushed out there. And just from driving on that wet curb, not allowing the car to rejoin back onto the bitumen with half of the right-hand tyre onto the grass, and it's gone before you know it.
Jack, we're really grateful that you're with us. Do stay with us for 10 minutes or so, because we've got a lot more to talk about, but I don't think we're going to get any track action for a few moments. With 20 minutes gone, we have a red flag. Logan Sargent's crash, it needs clearing up. Fernando Alonso has the fastest time from Oscar Piastri, and still 6 or 7 drivers haven't been out yet. We because whilst that came at a very bad time for Logan Sargent, because you never want to crash ever, it didn't exactly help those that were on an outlap, or those that actually haven't left the garage yet as well. Verstappen, Perez and Hamilton actually haven't been on the track as yet, and have missed a whole load of running, and will like that accident to get cleared up very quickly, but I'm not sure that's a quick job, because you're going to have to look at the arm code, make sure all the debris is swept away. But looking at where the crash came, it was very lucky, Logan Sargent. You see that big gap there? Is that gap, does it look like a big gap from that camera angle, and Jack, or?
I think it could fit a truck in a bit through
Could
there.
you fit a car
it's going
through
to
there,
have to, yeah, no, it has to be.
There's a slight overlap with the barriers.
Okay.
That angle makes it look a bit worse than it is. But there's a slight overlap between those orange barriers. We're told as drivers to, if you've got a mechanical problem with the car, to look out for the orange end of the barrier, because you know that's an access point, for example. But so you can get through it, but through it at an angle. But yeah, it's all part of the safety calculations that go into making these Grade 1 FIA circuits. But yeah, so the helmet's coming off for George Russell, for example. They know this is going to be a lengthy repair.
And we don't really know if there was any damage to that barrier as well.
Exactly, got to check that out before we go any further.
But speaking on your point of the drivers who weren't able to get out, I haven't looked at the weather this afternoon, but is it looking like a potential wet qualifying, or is it looking?
Well, I told Crofty I'd throw my trusty weather app away, because it told me as I walked outside and it was raining, but it wasn't raining. So
it's
that's
never
gone.
too good.
But so who knows?
But a situation that we see now, I don't know if it's still raining outside, I can't tell, it looks quite grim. But if the track is, say, without standing water, we know how quickly it can dry with Formula 1 cars on the track. So a point, if qualifying could be wet or could be an inter, they want to have as many inters as they can. Yeah. So that wait could have been for the drivers, hoping that the track may dry and they can go straight into the slick and save using that inter. You know, the inter that they've already used in P1 that they potentially might have to have and use for qualifying. So although it could be a plus for these guys that they got out there and inter and got some laps under their belt, it could also be a bonus for the others that didn't.
That is why we love days like today. And I don't know how prepared you are for days like today for next season, but you're going to have to get prepared for days like today, because they present an opportunity, I think.
I agree. And I've been simming them in my head every weekend, you know, just in case that I might have to jump in. I'm sure it'll be different when it's the real thing, but I'm looking forward to it.
And they run a free intermediate tyre today. They might have had one yesterday. They give that back and they get an extra one for today. This is the replay of why we have the red flag. It was just that moment, getting the power down. You need a bit of grip, and you ain't going to get it on the turf.
Just not allowing the car to come back onto the circuit. And you never want to give up lap time when you're inside the car, getting off the power, but that would have been the saviour there.
Yeah.
He's on fire, he needs to jump out.
There's also a tyre moving down the middle, rolling down the middle of the circuit.
Still have a red flag here in Zandvoort, and because of this incident, Logan Sargent, who was trying to get the power down on the turf, fourth lap, greasy conditions on the track, even worse off the track.
Quite a big crash in turns 4-5.
Is he okay?
That is the result
he's okay.
Very good.
of what happened. We can have a listen now to some team radio. George Russell was very quickly on the scene, and this is what he was saying.
Double yellow turn 4. Oh, big crash. Big crash. And Sergeant said he's okay on the radio.
Okay. Yep, they need some fire marshals.
George Russell and Marcus Dudley in conversation. That's the fire that they were referring to. And that's the conversation at Ferrari. And all the drivers obviously concerned about the situation, as you would expect. The car's coming back to the garage now. It's on a low loader. Who's your race engineer going to be next year? Do you know?
I don't know, no, not at this point. I guess you would naturally presume from an outside perspective that when one driver leaves, the new driver would take over, but there has been no comms on that as yet, so we'll wait and see. But I've got an amazing relationship with all the guys and engineers in there, as I haven't been pinpointed to one side. You know, I've played the whole room, which is great.
Jack Doohan with us in the commentary box for the next 4 minutes, I am told. So, some quick-fire questions. You haven't raced for a few years.
1 year.
Well, 1 year then. How rusty?
Like 7 months.
Yeah, but still, it feels like an eternity for me too. Do you feel that you're going to be a bit rusty when you start racing again, or does that just come back?
No, definitely not. You know, I've done now I think already 7 or 8 days this year in the Formula One machinery, in the A521 and A522, plus a Pirelli test day in the A524, albeit reduced due to rain. But I'm in the car on Tuesday in Imola. With one of Esteban's engineers, his performance engineer, will be running me there. 2 days in Abu Dhabi, further 2 days in Barcelona, so I have quite a bit more running. So, you know, I'm going to be, you know, racing at home my sim as well. I don't think I'll be rusty at all, to answer your question.
Good. We want to hear that as well. What did you say to your dad when the contract got signed? Five-time motorcycle champion, of course. His entry at the Formula One never really took off, so at least you got bragging rights on that part.
Exactly, but I don't think I've got any bragging rights over him, to be honest. I think I'm a long, long way away from that. You know, I would love to get to that place where I could. Yeah. But no, I think it was an amazing moment. You know, we've both sacrificed so much. You know, I'm very fortunate for the opportunity that he gave me, and I'm very, very grateful, not only him, my whole family. So I think it was a nice sigh of relief, and just a nice moment that we could share there together, and for him to witness sign my contract there for me, that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That's lovely, a lovely moment. Standing here this time next year, if Crofty and I have the privilege to even be allowed to talk to you,
yeah,
what would you think? Yeah, what would you consider a job well done by this point in the season, this time next year?
You know, it's difficult to say where things are going to be, but for me, I just want to be making sure that wherever the car's level at is that I'm maximizing that I've learned as much as possible. I've made sure that, you know, as a rookie and as a newcomer to the sport of Formula One, that I'm doing all the things well. I'm maximizing my role. I'm utilizing all the tools that I have inside the team, so that we're going forward. You know, that is the main objective, and that is to get Alpine and the whole company, the Formula One team, back to the pointy end of the field and to where, you know, we have been. So I'm hoping with youth, with hunger, with my determination, with you know, hopefully that we can get everyone back together. Not that they're not together, but we've been building forward this year, getting the right people in place, and hopefully that we can, you know, continue moving forward, and I can be a benefit to that.
New driver, new boss, new future, yeah?
Let's say.
I love it. And we could not be more pleased, because you're not going to be hanging around the paddock going, do you want me to come up to the commentary box now because I've got nothing else to do? Next year, you've got something to do. We like that.
I won't comment on that, but I do love it up here there.
And my advice to you is, Jack, keep driving as fast as you can, otherwise you could be standing here for your punishment alongside Crofty.
Yeah, you're a long time in the commentary box, mate.
Yeah, thanks guys so much. Cheers.
Take care of yourself.
Cheers.
Jack Doohan announced for the Alpine team for next year, and we are dead chuffed. Look after yourself, buddy. Cheers. Bernie Collins. I think there's a Williams in the pit lane.
Yeah, we're walking up and down the pit lane with Williams mechanics. I feel like one of the team at the minute, to be honest, Crofty. But the car's just come back. They've been trying to figure out what end of the pit lane they're going to be fit to pick it up from. And they're going to very quickly try and get covers. They've already got the bannering out in the garage to try and make sure that we can see as little as possible. I don't know if you can see the images, Crofty, but the mechanics are all here with their... almost looks like marigolds that you do your dishes with, but that's a safety concern, so there's no electrical. You know, they obviously don't know what state the engine's in, they don't know how the battery is, like Ant mentioned earlier, so that's a safety precaution for the mechanics, because obviously there's a significant battery charge in these cars, so it's just about keeping people away almost from this, making sure that they can get the car safely off that loader into the garage and start to assess the damage, and I think at the minute it's just going to be straight into probably a spare chassis, because with that sort of battery damage, fire damage, so much of the internals of the car, you just don't know the state. The wiring loom in particularly, there's a lot of components that are used in the gearbox that will actually, when they get burnt, are very, very dangerous. And that's one of the reasons they'll just be taking this car back. They've cleared the garage, they've got the banner in here, and it'll be a bit of a try and get this in a safe condition, push it out the back, and then hopefully they've got a spare chassis here this weekend. Obviously Williams struggled with that at the beginning of the year, and start to get into that rebuild of this car, but probably quite a late night ahead for these mechanics. But so, at the minute it's just about keeping everybody safe from a car in an uncertain condition.
Bernie, thanks ever so much indeed. They've had a spare chassis now since Miami, I believe. But we'll try and, I know he's very busy, we'll try and get James Vowles to come on and have a chat. He's our team boss on the pit wall with us for this weekend. While Bernie was talking out, we saw the barrier repairs taking place. I get the feeling we're in for another 10-15 minutes of delay at least here.
Exactly, there's got to be some super speedy work, but first and foremost, the work has to be done in a methodical way that they can make the circuit back to how its state where it's homologated. That's the most important thing.
James Vowles is with us on the pit wall. James, thanks so much for coming on. You never want to see a car, your car, like it is at the moment, but this couldn't be the worst time of the weekend for this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no good time. There's sort of hundreds of hours spent on this update kit. It looks like it's working well, but there's few of them in the world. And really, the worst time is when you've just introduced it with small amounts of bits and you put it into a wall of the circuit. So the other difficulty you just mentioned there is it's FP3, so qualifying is going to be on us pretty quickly, but I'm probably sure you saw the images and can see it despite me now. That's in a really bad state.
Have you got a spare chassis, and have you got extra upgraded parts so that when you do get allowed into the race, you can run the same spec as you had before?
I think yes is the answer, but actually there's a limited amount, so if something happens now to other car, you need to make sure in park firmware you have enough spares. That's more what I want to evaluate now. When we're in a park firmware condition, can we service both cars to efficient standard?
Yeah, because what you wouldn't want is Alex to have a good qualifying and then have an issue, say, where he damages a part and then you can't replace like for like and he gets a punishment for that.
It's exactly that, yeah. So there's a bit, the first step of it is really we're going to go through in detail what has been damaged in this. It looks pretty serious, if I'm honest, and I think that could result in a chassis change, so let's keep an eye on what that looks like.
James, have you spoken to Logan on the radio? Is he okay?
He jumped on the radio, said I'm okay, then had to jump out because the car was on fire, so I think an opportunity to talk to him. He's down at the medical centre at the moment, just had a nod that he's okay, so we'll bring him back up here and have a chat.
And what do you say to him going into what is probably the race, not qualifying? How do you rebuild the confidence as a team principal?
The first and foremost is the trick behind all of this, that you've got some real experts on as a part of your panel on Sky. You've got to compartmentalise what's happened. So in other words, put it into a box and understand why it happened and what went wrong. I mean, to me, it looked like he washed out, didn't realise there's grass there, put a wheel on the grass, which then effectively resulted in that huge accident. But put that into a box, what caused it, what materialised, what we learned from it, so you can't repeat it again. And the real expertise with Formula 1 drivers, they can typically do that with obviously much smaller incidents by the next corner. So once we can do that, create the right mindset, then we'll get the most out of it tomorrow.
James, thanks so much. I know you're really busy, but we appreciate your time. James Vowles with us live from the Williams pit wall, and yeah, we're grateful that he could come on and talk so candidly about the decisions he has to make and the human side of his job as well. Because it's not just a rebuild of the car, he's got a rebuild of Logan Sargent at what is also a very difficult time in his career, returning to a racetrack, having just been told he definitely hasn't got a seat for next year.
Well, exactly that. For Logan, yeah, it's another huge knock to your confidence, and then this happens to you as well after the news that you've just lost your drive at that team for next year. From James's point of view, though, and from the team's point of view, I guess what's just happened there, being, brutally speaking here, it justifies their decision to swap their drivers and put a put a driver like Carlos Sainz in the car for next year, because you have to try to minimise these kind of moments. Yes, it was driver error. There's no other way I can build this up. It was driver error. So you, as a team principal, as a team, you have to try and minimise those moments.
I'm thinking chassis change. I'm thinking no chance of qualifying for Logan Sargent. He'll race because he will have set a time that's within 107% of the fastest time in a practice session. But as James says, he's also got to think about, right, Alex Albon and his potential and our potential to score the most amount of points, because Logan's going to be starting from the back of the grid come what may, and look, he looks physically absolutely fine, which is the very best thing there. But he won't be running the upgraded car, will he, for the race now?
Like James was saying, there's a finite amount of components that go towards this big upgrade that they bring here. So I seriously doubt that, well, A, that he'll be in that same chassis. It'll be a miracle if that chassis is not damaged. Time will tell. But B, all of those parts that were on the car, the upgrades, yeah, it's always a risk running them, obviously, in conditions like this, but the conditions may well be like this in qualifying, might be like this tomorrow for all we know. So you need to put them on the car at some point and trust that you're going to have them intact at the end of the session, so you can carry on working on things for the next session or the next day. And now they're gone. So as we look into the garage on the other side with Alex Albon, the drivers would have seen exactly what happened there. They'll all be aware of what not to do on the exit of that corner. If you're on that curb, as tempting as it is to keep flat out and build momentum, you have to at some point lift off out of it, get the car back onto the asphalt, not the curb.
We have certain drivers sat in cars, certain drivers stood at the back of the garage, and no news yet of when we're going to get a resumption for this practice session. So 23 minutes to go. Hopefully in about 7 or 8 minutes those barriers will be repaired, but it is quite a big repair job and safety is paramount. Alonso, Piastri and Stroll, the top three, all within half a second of each other. I would imagine there will be drivers chomping at the bit to get out there. And I know it's champing at the bit, but I prefer chomping, quite frankly. I would be eating my crash over to try and get out there currently. No time set for Charles Leclerc. He's done one lap, so I assume he was on an out lap when Logan Sargent had his accident. They were all waiting for the track to dry a little bit, and then, well, this is what happens at quote-unquote Axel Davidson, an old-school track. You know, these things come back to bite you.
They really do, and I think, like Jack Doohan was saying when we had him here with us, that the teams are keen to be saving their precious intermediate tyres for the remainder of the weekend.
Sorry, Lewis Hamilton's turned photographer down at Mercedes there. Which reminds me of a time I once saw someone walk up to Daniel Ricciardo and say, "Excuse me, can I have a photo?" Daniel took the camera and then took a photo of the fan and then walked off. And then came back and actually posed for a photo. But yeah, what else do you do in a break? You know, you keep yourself occupied, take a few photos. Do you want to see the steering wheel? Go, I'll show you the steering wheel. Now, that is a VIP tool.
Now, I'll show you the steering wheel. This, you're not allowed a photo of. I'm just joking. You can take the photo.
I tell you what, they're a tour guides, and they're a tour guides.
Exactly.
A 7-time world champion giving you a tour. Why not?
That's cool to see. And you know, it's moments like that where you really get to see the fans, how much they enjoy this sport, and what a privilege to be able to not just stand right next to the 7-time world champion, but also all of the machinery, the components that go into a Formula One car. It's all bespoke. They're like gems to behold when you study an F1 car up close. It's such a privilege for these fans right now.
So my eldest son, when he first came to a race at Silverstone for a race weekend, Mercedes very kindly said, Daniel, would you like a tour of the garage? Would you like to come in and see Michael Schumacher's car, as it was at the time? Daniel was about 4, and he said, oh, yeah, I love that, I love that. And in he walks, and they showed him the car, showed him the steering wheel, and the press officer, Nicola, came over and said, can you just make sure that he doesn't touch any of the buttons on the steering wheel? That's actually Michael's steering wheel proper for the car. It's not a show one. Just make sure he doesn't touch any of the dials. I mean, what, again? Sorry, I said, he's had it in his hands for 10 seconds. He's changed every setting on there, Nicola. You haven't got a pronounced chance of that ever working properly again.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Daniel's now 17, he'll hate me for saying that one on air, but yeah, sorry, son.
But in all seriousness, that's why the engineers go through every single dial on their software. They can see exactly where the buttons should be, and if they're not, they get the driver to change them. The things that the drivers can control. Yeah. So yeah, that's all part of the process, and it comes from moments like that where it has bitten them hard before.
There's a big crowd here at Zandvoort today. There are grey skies overhead, and I think it has stopped raining, but crucially, it's stopped running at the moment as well. The DJ is trying to keep the crowd entertained because we've got no action on track, still a red flag. Whilst the barriers are repaired after the crash involving Logan Sargent, who got onto the grass and then hit the barriers on the outside at turn 4 in towards turn 5 pretty heavily. The car is back in the pit lane. The screens, the shutters have been put in front of that Williams garage so that the crew can get on with the job of repair and probably a chassis change as well, and identify which parts are okay to use again and which parts aren't. And I think there might be a slightly bigger pile of parts that aren't okay than there are parts that are. Gearbox, there'll be a gearbox change for sure. You want to change the engine so you can send the one that was in the car back for analysis. Well, you had the fire as well, didn't you? So that's definitely an engine change there. They can survive it, but you're going to need to look at it quite in detail.
Yeah, there's a lot of components on that car, obviously, that will be in the scrap heap, and a lot of that barrier as well that will probably join them. It looks like they're making pretty swift progress on the barrier, but yeah, it needs to be exactly how it was before the incident. Otherwise, simply the track isn't up to homologation anymore.
Bernie Collins down in the pit lane for us. I've no idea what is going on down there, so give us a flavour, Bernie, and has it stopped raining?
Well, it has thankfully stopped raining, Crofty, that is for sure, but it's not brightened up as much as we were expecting at this stage. Pit lane's still pretty wet. A lot of the teams are trying to dry their grid boxes where they can. Just to bring you a bit of information, the 2 Red Bulls and Hamilton haven't even been out on track yet. One of the reasons for that is they were wanting to run that Inter that they can run for free this morning. They give it back after this session, but they were trying to wait for Hulkenberg, that front wing that you seen, waiting to see if that would cause a red flag. Wait a little bit more as the pit lane rushed out when it was Hulkenberg was back in, and that was clear. And then the second red flag, or the only red flag we've had, but the second potential came along. So they've not made it out, but it's looking pretty calm here. The only thing to say is the wind was very, very quiet at the beginning of this race, quite settled on the flags opposite me compared to what it had been yesterday, but it has started to pick up as we've gone through this session. So when the guys go back out, or hopefully get out at the very end of this session, there will be slightly more wind than what they experienced earlier on at the beginning of P3.
And is that the forecast for qualifying as well, Bernie, that the wind is going to continue to pick up all day?
A bit agreed with Ant that the forecast, we are not being reliable so far this weekend, but what we are expecting is the wind will pick up, but also we're expecting the sun to make an appearance, which it hasn't so far today.
I'm just concerned about the wind. Ant has told me we're going on a 10k run back from the track to the hotel later, and I think at the moment the wind will be behind us for most of that 10k. If it could stay that way, I'd be grateful.
That would be very beneficial, I think, Rocky. Not so much for the race cars, which is the tailwind down the straight at the moment, but let's see. Oh, and as I said that, it's sunny now.
Excellent. See, Bernie says it happens. The sun comes out.
The sun shines down on her wherever she goes.
Yeah, if there's a headwind, by the way, on this 10K run, you are in so much trouble when I get my breath back on Wednesday.
I was ducked behind you. I did a nice slipstream.
Slipstream.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't return the favour. I don't think it will quite work.
No, sadly not. I'm so looking forward to that for later. Thank you very much. It does look a lot brighter, which is nice. So maybe if we do get some running, all those that haven't been out haven't really missed anything today, and it was just one of those sessions where, for the likes of Carlos Sainz, you need to check that the new gearbox is working okay, and there are no issues. And for Nico Hülkenberg, you need to make sure that your brakes are working properly, and that hasn't happened.
I mean, where does Hülkenberg go from here? Where does the team go from here? Every time he's driven the session so far, he's been off the track because of braking issues. Yeah. So.
Well, when you go for your first lap in qualifying and you're pushing to the limit and you apply the brakes trusting they're going to work,
I'm sure there's a lot of head scratching going on there, not just from overnight as well, but now particularly after this session. It's happened again when one car's not doing it and the other one is. It should all be the same components and the same software running it. It really can stump you, and for a driver's point of view, it's horrible because it makes you look like the fool. Yeah. It makes you look like the one that's, you just basically, you've forgotten how to brake and you keep throwing the car off the track every time.
You may have seen some stories, by the way, regarding Haas and a potential that they might miss the Italian Grand Prix because of a dispute, well, not really a dispute, but a situation with their former sponsor. The team having to pay back an amount of money to that former sponsor. The money hadn't been paid back. The sponsor went to court in Holland to say, right, unless this money gets paid, we need our money, and we think you should seize the assets of the team until we get our money. And the police and the bailiffs did turn up at the track on Thursday to have a look at what assets were here. I'm told there is absolutely no chance that Haas will miss the Italian Grand Prix. They will be leaving here on Sunday night. The situation has been resolved. It was administrative, if I could say that word, rather than any potential of them not ever paying the money. So it was a procedural more than anything else. I went down to check that one out. That's good because we want to see all the teams on the grid. And they had no qualms whatsoever that the money was owed back to their sponsor again. This is the stage we're at now, and slow motion replays of people in the stands clapping.
I thought we were going to have a before and after. Oh, we almost did, didn't we? So yeah, jackets and no jackets. So that's the track is, well, the conditions ready to go, but the track's not. And if we do see some running, it's going to be, well, we've got 12.5 minutes remaining now. And similar to how it was yesterday in FP1, a drying circuit, the lap times just tumble the whole way through to the end of the session, but whether we will see any running or not, that's yet to be seen.
Do you think we need to make space in the schedule for situations like this, whereby we've had the red flag now for over half an hour, 34 minutes nearly, where if we lose more than half an hour running in a session because of a red flag, not because it's raining and the teams don't want to come out, but because there's a red flag, we lose more than half an hour, something like an extra 15-20 minutes can get tagged on to the session, so the teams can get the practice in that they were banking on when they turned up for work today.
It's not a bad idea. Obviously, things like tyre allocation may come into it, reliability of the cars.
But we've lost that half an hour, haven't we? So if we've lost half an hour, tag on another 15 minutes, and
it does make sense. The only problem, if you have multiple support events as well, you could run the risk of it running too late into the day, and then if they have in their sessions red flags and etc, it just snowballs, doesn't it, to the point where, well, somebody's not going to get a race, because on a day like today we can have qualifying or even races in different categories that are here, and it's a hard one to juggle, really, basically.
I just think for those that turn up at the racetrack, and for those watching around the world who have tuned in as well, and thank you for your company today, they want to see, the fans want to see action on the track, and it just seems a shame that we are seeing shots at the moment of Marshall's having a great time and enjoying the music, rather than we could get another 15-20 minutes at the scheduled end of the session. The session will resume at 12:25, to be confirmed though. That's not hard and fast 12:25. That is a I think that's a call that's gone in from race control to those that are doing the barriers to say, when do you reckon you'll be finished so we could get going again? So it's a kind of estimation that in 5 minutes' time, 5.5 minutes' time, we could be able to get going again. Then there will be a stampede, I think, out of the pit lane for cars to do at least 1 or 2 laps.
Yeah, for 5 minutes we'll be seeing, yeah, like you say, everyone on track that can be, but then, yeah, and it's in a time like that when you would like to see the session extended a bit, but then on the flip side, I quite like it when the teams have limited data. when I'm not there doing any of the sim work and being part of a team for a weekend, or being a driver wanting more track time, it's nice sitting on this side of the fence to say, or to see a lack of track time for the teams, because it really. It just creates more jeopardy, doesn't it?
You just want another victory for the sim team at Brackley, don't you? It's like, yeah, you didn't get much track running. Good job you got a good sim team. Good job we were on the case. It was all us what did it.
I think they had Mick Schumacher in there last night.
Did they?
Yeah. So and similar to Jack Toon, he's back at the circuit today. So yeah, hats off to Mick for that dedication, the work he put in there back at Brackley.
But it is a good job that the sim tools and facilities are there, that the teams can at least get a baseline in that is more accurate than it would be, say, 10, 15 years ago. You were talking to Jack about, you know, coming into the sport. We were talking in the office earlier about drivers coming into the sport today. There is little testing compared to in your day, but there are much better simulation tools so that drivers can be prepared in a different way now.
I arguably learned more about the complexities of aerodynamics and a Formula 1 car's mechanical balance and what you can or can't do to a racing car, an F1 car, in the world of simulation than I did in the real world track running, because you can...
Because you're in a controlled environment?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can control the elements. You're not fighting track evolution, for example, and you can really feel, as we take another look at this massive impact out of turn 3, yeah, you can really feel the differences that you can create within a Formula 1 car, aerodynamically and mechanically, through the world of simulation now. So, but I still don't know who. We were talking about Kimi Antonelli before. Who would have the easier time of it? Was it Kimi Raikkonen, the original Kimi, back in the days, coming straight from a Formula Renault car to a real-world track testing before he got his chance with Sauber? Or is it Antonelli with hardly any real-world track testing, but loads of simulation-based running? Yeah, I don't know who has it easier in many ways.
It's just different, isn't it?
It's different. Yeah. They're definitely different. But yeah, it's a fascinating world. The virtual is fascinating what they can do with the cars today. Obviously, it will never be exactly the feeling you have in a real car, but you come to the track so much more prepared in everything you know about car setup.
Yeah.
And even what the wind may do from one corner to the next, because all of that can be simulated as well. So the effects of what it can do to a car are hardwired, therefore, into a young driver's brain today, before they've even stepped foot into the machinery.
Whereas in the past, you just picked things up with experience and you relied on gut instinct or feel. Now you can practice for these moments over and over again. It is absolutely fascinating. If only you'd let me into your sim over at Brackley, and then we could have a look round, but it's top secret. Why don't we have a look round?
It's very top secret.
Promise I won't touch the steering wheel like I some do once.
You've got a known track record, you two, now. There's no way you're coming anywhere.
Yeah.
But what I thought with the young generation now, us old men standing here in our commentary box, what Jack was saying, I'll be Ray Sharp. I've got my sim back at home as well. I'll do some sim race. It's like it's such a different world from where I came from as a young driver. Old men. I'll be Ray Sharp thanks to my simulations at home.
This time a week ago, we were at Taylor Swift. I'll give you old men.
I felt very old there.
No, I was dancing all night. It was fantastic. It's a cruel summer, making us give up on our Taylor Swift endeavours and having to go back to work again. But down to the pit lane. Bernie, is anybody getting ready?
Well, it's very, very much a case here of hurry up and wait. I think hopefully you can see the line of mechanics in front of me. The cars are fired up. The blankets are just... I can see on Kevin Magnussen, and a lot of the mechanics walking out, getting ready to release the car. Oh, and they've just been given the turn it off signal.
Yeah.
Restart time has been a 4. The one right next to me, not the ones ahead. So.
Bernie, we're just hearing every other word, sadly, at the moment. I think someone stood in front of you, and we're not quite getting the reception from your radio mic. As we came down to you, they flashed up, session will resume at 12:27. I thought it was a bit of an estimate, the 12:25. They're doing their best to get some form of track running. If we do get going at 12:27, Andy, people would say, well, what is the point of that? But of course, what we would get is practice starts on the grid if cars were able to come out.
Yeah, practice starts on the grid, like you say. Also, a bit of an installation lap or another installation lap if you're Carlos Sainz at Ferrari, for example. So there's never such thing as wasted track time in Formula One, but it's not the kind of track time that we, sitting here in the comms box, would like to see.
Bernie, we can go back down to you, I do believe.
Crofty, going to try again, but I was just saying, we've got a hurry up and wait situation here. All of the cars are fired up. Mechanics are stepped out in the pit lane, hands held to hold the car in position, ready to get to the end of that pit lane for the red light. And what the difficulty they have is it's a compromise now. The inters are at 60 degrees in these blankets. When they're sat down in no blankets, they're cooling all the time. So it's a compromise between being first in the queue and having nice warm tyres. Even if you can get a lap in, that is very beneficial information on these inters. And the start on the grid, as you say, so important. This is only the second opportunity to do a start on the grid this weekend. And as we know, the forecast, we do not know the conditions on Sunday as we get the Haas cars moving behind me now.
The session will resume at 12:28, 1.5 minutes time. So the minute that there isn't a TBC at the end of the message, the teams know they can get out, and we have a race on our hands with, in pole position for the second time in his career, Kevin Magnussen.
I can see his teammate as well, Hulkenberg, lined up just behind him, and that's another car and driver combination that I'm sure will want to maximise every single millimetre of this circuit. Who knows how many times he's going to press the brake pedal on his way around to the way around to the grid.
But he will want to, you know, have a lap and test out whatever they've tried to find a fix for in the last 50-odd minutes.
Absolutely. Now the rule here is that you can't push in. So you can't push in. If a part of your car is over the white line, when there's a bit of a gap, then you're allowed to go. And it's that final white line after the sponsorship logo. Just before you go onto the fast lane, but from the position the RBs are in, you can't just sort of muscle your way into the queue.
It's got to be done in an orderly fashion. Wait for a gap and don't cause anyone behind you to slam their brakes on, especially for Nico Hulkenberg. And I would imagine that photographer needs to get out of the way as well before the cars start moving. 19 cars, because Logan Sargent's is in the garage and will be there for some time and being changed. If it is a chassis change, there is no way he can do qualifying because it won't get scrutinized until tomorrow. Here we go. We have a green light. Kevin Magnussen swiftly away, as is Nico Hulkenberg, and the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu. Now, whether they're all going to get out and have anything like a meaningful lap, we shall see. And whether they all want to come out, we shall see, because some might decide it just isn't worth it. Although Lewis Hamilton, one of the three that hasn't been on the track so far, Max Verstappen, another one that hadn't been out so far, have managed to get out. Now has Sergio Perez, so everyone will have been out at least once in this session. But it's not ideal, and there is Max Verstappen coming out behind Lewis Hamilton.
Verstappen getting very close to the white line there, wasn't he, on the pit lane exit, which the stewards are always having a look at. They treat that white line like it's a concrete wall, basically. You're not allowed to go over that one, but he was having a bit of a look. And interestingly, the two Haas cars, they swapped over. Did he actually overtake a car in?
Well,
which you are allowed to do.
You are allowed.
So he's seen a gap in front of him. And does he go around the outside and over the line?
Oh, he does.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
You're not allowed to do that. I don't think you're allowed to touch the line, let alone go over it.
Yeah, like I say, they treat it like a concrete wall. So, well, we see sometimes.
So that's okay, getting past Piastri. But the next bit,
we might see a better angle. And this is, I'm sure this is why we're seeing replays here. Yeah, that left rear was definitely over the white line.
One would suggest that's a fine coming his way as we're in a practice session.
Yeah, I should think so.
But we'll see if that gets noted. Look at this, like a race going on out there. Max Verstappen down the inside of Lewis Hamilton, no way round on the inside, all the outside. He's got the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz right there, and Hamilton on the inside of the Ferrari manages to undertake, as it were, around the banking to start his lap. And Max Verstappen has been noted for failing to follow race director's instructions, and the reason they were keen to get a move on there is that the checkered flag has now fallen and Sergio Perez missed it.
Exactly, it's Sergio Perez, Stroll, Albon, Tsunoda, Ricciardo. None of those drivers will get a chance to have a flying lap here. And that's what they were all jostling around for. They wanted free space, but they only had 10 seconds remaining when we saw that crew battling around the final corner.
This is brilliant. It's like a race out there at the moment. George Russell ahead of the Ferrari. Why did we cut away from that? We wanted to see if Russell got past Leclerc. He didn't. Russell was under pressure now from Piastri. He slowed down. Piastri's managed to overtake him. This is probably the most meaningful lap. Well, Hülkenberg and Magnussen, they're the ones that are going to get a real gap and space to put a proper lap in. The conditions still wet, but dry enough for intermediates. Hülkenberg with a 1:22.3. Magnussen quickest with a 1:20.4. So he goes fastest by a second for Fernando Alonso, who's in the pits. Zhou Guanyu can't go faster. His teammate Valtteri Bottas behind Magnussen. Pierre Gasly, who was on the podium here last year, goes quickest. His teammate Esteban Ocon finishes 6th fastest. Sainz 10th fastest. Hamilton and Verstappen having their little battles with Leclerc as well. 15th, 16th and 17th. I think they just wanted to do a bit of racing and have some fun down there, to be honest, Ad. That was all too brief, but spectacular nonetheless.
Yeah, whets the appetite, hopefully, for what's to come.
What have you done there?
Wet, yeah.
Very good.
Very good, yeah. Poet, and I didn't know it. Gasly does go well around this track, doesn't he? He likes it wet or dry. He seems to always relish the opportunity to push the car. It is a track where you really have to hustle the car. And look, even in that short space of time, the cars were starting to dry a bit, that racing line. So, wow, if we don't see, even if you'd have to say, if the qualifying starts wet, in no time at all, it will dry up if that rain were to stop. So here's that moment again with Verstappen muscling his way past Piastri, which, again, you're entitled to do if there's that gap in front. But then,
yeah, this bit here. Now, you could argue that the greasiness of the track caused him to maybe go over the line or at least touch the line, and he was trying to stay within it, but the evidence is normally it doesn't matter why it happened. The fact that it did happen, he's definitely over the white line there.
It's just too narrow, isn't it, to have two cars side by side, it seems, around the exit of that part of the track. But
and that was Stewart's argument. You didn't actually have to be trying to overtake anyone there, Max.
No, they all knew they were going to be tight on time by the end of it, but as they came up to the line, and that's why he was trying to overtake the cars, because he wanted to get himself further up the order.
So they'll do practice starts on the grid. Checo Perez didn't get out in time to get to the line and put a fast lap in, or complete the fast lap, because the checkered flag was already out. Now they get their practice starts, and we're on board with Max Verstappen.
And this is probably what it was really all about, is so that the cars, or the data engineers, the start strategy gurus could get the data, that valuable data from, if we were to have a start in these conditions come Sunday afternoon, then they've got more data loaded up, ready to go, and what to do with the clutch and the slip of it, and the revs that go into it as well before you pull away. Do you start in first gear, or like we see in the wet conditions, sometimes in second gear? These cars have such an incredible amount of torque now that you can get away with in second gear, you can pull away like that. So yeah, lots to be learnt from the start here in these conditions.
Not sure what we learnt for the rest of the session though. Pierre Gasly with the fastest time at the end. The track was a lot drier from Kevin Magnussen and Valtteri Bottas. Fernando Alonso at one stage was the quickest driver. He didn't come back out again when we finally got going 2 minutes before the checkered flag, and it was a red flag for well over 40 minutes because of the crash that has seen Logan Sargent's car get very, very badly damaged. He's fine. The car certainly isn't. He won't be taking part in qualifying. We would imagine it's a chassis change as well. There's a big rebuild going on down at Williams, but the driver, as I say, mainly the main issue is he is fine, and that's a good thing. Frustrating because there was a lot to be learnt out there, and I'm not sure the team's got the learning done, but it was Pierre Gasly who finished up on top.